thank you very much for coming along. This is actually, it's very good. That's how we work. That's how we roll here. This is it's actually part of a programme of events that's organised through the British Theatre Research Group, but we've thrown it open slightly more widely because of the wider appeal of our guest. Tim Crouch is a performer, a director and a writer who co-founded Public Parts in Bristol in the 1980s, has worked extensively for the, actually I should check this with you, Education Department of the National Theatre.
And I've done some acting there as well.
And did some acting, and you've been on telly and stuff.
I don't want to talk about that.
Okay. But his high profile in British theatre has risen considerably this decade,
yes,
with a series of provocative, riddling, conceptually very sophisticated shows that have also been big hits, called there's My Arm in 2003, An Oak Tree in 2005, England in 2007, and this year's The Author, which lots of you have seen and was upstairs at the Royal Court. So it's a great pleasure to have him here to talk about his work. Join me in welcoming Tim.
Thank you very much.
The way we're going to run this is I get to pretend I've got a chat show for about 30 to 40 minutes.
Great.
So I'm going to ask you lots of questions, and then I'm going to hand it over to you. I know that most people here probably know The Author more than the other work, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask various questions about arrange the work and get to The Author rather later on, but on the assumption that you've also got questions about that show to ask. So look, as I said, I guess most people who know your work came to know about you through My Arm around that time.
It was the first play I wrote ever.
Right, but I guess, but of course you have been working in theatre for almost 25 years.
Yes.
Can you just say something about the sort of trajectory?
Okay, yes, I'll try and do it as quickly as possible. I went to university, studied drama. I don't recommend that. Try not to. You can have it. Too late. And then set up a devising collective socialist theatre company out of Bristol, which toured the southwest to prisons and community centres and things for 7 years. I then went to drama school and did a 1-year postgrad course at Central. It was the first year of a course, and it was shambolic, to say the least. We had no course leader until the second term, which is never a good way to organise a course. But I thought I should go and do that because I was a devising, improvising, regionally based, non-drama school trained actor, and I thought I'd have problems getting jobs as such. So I went to Central for a year, still lived in Bristol and had a motorbike and went up and down. And then I became an actor with a capital A for about another 7 years maybe. But during that time I started to teach more and more, and I found the teaching much more satisfying than the acting, and also had some sort of formatively grisly acting experiences that made me start to recalibrate my understanding of theatre and all that kind of stuff, and begin to get some authority in my ideas. I also started a PhD at Goldsmiths and then stopped it because I couldn't understand French philosophers. Dan, sorry about that. Couldn't understand it, and knew that I had lots of ideas that I wanted to write about, but wasn't allowed to just write about them. I had to substantiate everything. I didn't want to substantiate anything at all. So that was not the right attitude to start a PhD, really. And so I started to write at the age of 38. I'm now 45. I started to write as a response to a bit of a crisis in my life and in my work, because I was about to give up acting because I was depressed about it. So in 2002, I sat down, and over a period of 5 days, over a period of 2 months, over a period of weekends when my wife took my children away, I wrote this play, My Arm. It's a story about me living with one arm above my head for 30 years until I die, and I wrote it very quickly. I didn't write it for anyone else, which I think is a very good thing. I didn't pre-rationalise whatsoever. I've done a huge amount of post-rationalising, but did no pre-rationalising, which I would suggest is another good way if you're writing. Don't think too much before you start. Just start and then see what comes out. So I did that in quite a major way, and actually in that text there are a huge number of big philosophical sort of statements, really, but beautifully hidden inside a story about a boy who puts his arm above his head. Philosophical statements about performance, about theatre. The beginning of that play, I invite the audience to donate objects, inanimate objects. Those objects selected at random play the characters in the story. I do not, even though I talk the story autobiographically and in the first person, I do not at any point in that story put my arm above my head. There are a number of sort of contradictory, sort of the eye and the ear contradict themselves in that show. So, I talk about having this finger removed and show them this finger. And those are moments when the audience begin to think it might not be my true story. I show them a scar on my back, which I haven't got. And I was aware that they were all leaning forward to see the scar, even though empirically everything about the show would suggest that none of this was true. It was exciting to tap into the power of an audience to take those suggestions. So that was the first thing. I wrote it, I thought I would perform it in people's front rooms, which I did in Brighton, where I live. But then through a series of strokes of serendipity and good luck, I sent it to Carol Churchill, a play of hers I'd done at the National, Light Shining in Buckinghamshire. She then started to send it round to people. Mark Ravenhill said, get in touch with this woman at Faber. I sent it to Faber, who published it before it had even been performed, which is ridiculous, really. And then we opened it at the Traverse in Edinburgh in 2003, and I haven't worked for anyone else since.
Right.
Which is, I am not complacent about that. I think that's I'm very lucky. Very lucky. And when the play was published, this is a whistle-stop tour, I put a thing at the beginning saying the next play will be called An Oak Tree, 1973, having no idea what that play would be about, but being totally in love with a piece of artwork called An Oak Tree and wanting to make a piece of theatre in response to that. And I thought if I would put it in the published edition of this, then I couldn't back out. Do you know what I mean? It would be a statement, and then I would do it. So An Oak Tree came, and then it started, things. And I also wrote a couple of pieces for children that year, and it was a kind of act of wish fulfillment, really. If you say you are something, then a little switch gets switched on and to make you believe that you can be that thing.
You're galloping through all my questions.
Sorry about that.
I want to ask you just something about that starting point, because the way you talk about it sort of suggests that, as you say, it was a kind of crisis moment, and clearly it's a big change of direction.
Yeah.
But, one of the things that did characterise a lot of your work before, let's say, My Arm, it was working with young people, theatre for young people, is that right?
Yeah. Before I started to write, I did a lot of education.
Right, okay.
I didn't do much children's theatre.
Right, okay.
No, I mean, characterising my acting career after the Socialist Collective in Bristol, after drama school, a series of shows at the National, none of whom were for young people. There was a Good Woman of Setswan that was a sort of an educational department touring production. I played Macbeth in Macbeth at the Swan Theatre, Worcester. You have to go to the Swan Theatre, Worcester. It's actually very different to the Swan Theatre, which is part of the RSC. I did it in Worcester. And so that stuff, and then I did that Mark Ravenhill play, this play Handbag. Yeah. That was the year in which I played a butch Macbeth and then two screaming homosexuals in Handbag. And I thought I will never be typecast.
Right.
That's a disaster. What a disaster, and how great as well. So no, young people's work. No, not professionally.
Okay. Well, that ruins the point I was about to make.
Well, what was the point you were going to make? We could pretend that I did.
What I was going to say is that just one of the things that strikes me about these four more recent shows is there's a level of sort of simplicity, but actually less so much with the author. But I was thinking that an audience of 12-year-olds could watch An Oak Tree.
Yes.
And I mean, obviously there might be sophisticated levels that they would get, but there's a certain level at which it's a very clear story that anyone could understand. I wondered whether that simplicity is a very conscious thing.
Okay, yes. I mean, again, so much of the subsequent work has been born out of what I would call the mothership of My Arm. It's the mother of all those ideas and the belief that I have passionately in story and story's ability to contain extremely complex ideas. And what's wonderful about story is that you can enter story at lots of different levels. So, with My Arm, yes, a 10-year-old is about a 10-year-old boy. My 10-year-old could see it and enjoy it. Yeah. And a university professor could see it and enjoy it on lots of different levels, other levels. And that's important for me. I don't want to make a piece of work that is exclusive in any way, and I can't write until I have a story. I can't. I don't know how anyone can. I do know there are pieces, devised pieces, and scripted pieces that are not narratively based or that work against narrative, but I don't do that. And I have always told stories, Dan, and I was for a bit the official storyteller for the Woodcraft folk, which is a kind of hippie alternative to the Scouts and Guides, and used to tell improvised stories to children, and have done that since before I had children, in fact.
Right.
So there's probably something in that, in fact, yes. Simplicity is important. I think the author is very simple as well, on one level. Very simple. There is no complex language in that play.
Right.
You can pick your way through it quite simply, but then there are different layers of approach to the piece, which start to really problematise it.
Yeah, sure. I suppose, I was going to ask you about where they come from, because as I said at the beginning, it does seem to me that all the work has this kind of conceptual art type set of questions that are always working in it, and as you say, about the relationship between what we see and what we understand to be happening, and those sorts of things. But what you're saying is that while they might be in your head, you don't feel the show has started coming together until the story is there.
Yes. So there's a classic example is an oak tree, in that I had this work of art, which is a piece of text and a glass of water. That's an oak tree. And I don't have the text with me, but it's worth seeking out. There's a couple of quotes from it in there, but it's not the whole thing. And the whole thing, I would say, is the most important theatre text I know, actually. The text that accompanies this work of art called An Oak Tree, made in 1973, in which the artist explains how he's transformed the properties of a glass of water into those of a fully grown oak tree. And the questioner says, do you mean it's a symbol of an oak tree? And he says, no, it's not a symbol. It is no longer a glass of water as an oak tree. And they say, it still looks like a glass of water. And he says, yes, I haven't changed its physical appearance, but it's no longer a glass of water. It is an oak tree. And for me, this is so much about what theatre is. If I play Hamlet, lo and behold, I still look like me. Do you know what I mean? And I am not a symbol of Hamlet. I am Hamlet, so I have physically transformed. I'm excited about that, and that is a conceptual art work. So I had that piece of work. I had some interesting ideas about hypnotism, and a book that I had about self-mastery through conscious auto-suggestion, which is about hypnotism, and I put those two ideas together. But I could not write that play. I wrote lots of notes about those things, but I could not write that play until I knew what the story was. And the story for An Oak Tree came, don't want to talk mystically, but just came beautifully. When I was doing a run of my arm in New York, it suddenly all fell into place. The Oak Tree was about two men meeting 3 months after the death of a child. One is a stage hypnotist who was responsible for the death of that child, and one is the father of that child. And, anyway, it all suddenly, there is a transformation because the father of that child has transformed a tree next to where she died into his daughter. So it's using the idea of a transformation with a tree, but the other way around. So the tree gets turned into his daughter. He is more with his daughter now than he ever was when she was alive. His wife is about to leave him. He's having a crisis, and he comes to me for help. And the deal with An Oak Tree, of course, is that the actor who plays the father is different every time the play is performed and has never seen or read the play. So there's another act of transformation, rather like the glass of water in the oak tree. Here's an actor, male or female. They are transformed, not into a symbol, but they are transformed into a 46-year-old grieving father with a bloodshot eye. Man or woman, it's as simple as that. So, but I could not write it. I had all these full and lovely fecund ideas, but would not know how to do. For me, it's an idea. Theatre is an idea in action. That's what it has to be. You can't just write an ideological play. It's deadly. I don't know what I think people do, and it's pretty upsetting for me. So an idea in action. So find your action. And if you trust your action, if that action is narrative, it can be other things, but for me the action is always narrative, then the idea will come through it. If your first priority is the idea, then I don't know how it can communicate. I might as well write a pamphlet. I might as well give a lecture about the idea. So there has to be some container. I talk about taking a pill. You take an active chemical, but you can't just take it straight in. You have to put it in something so your body can digest it. Feels like that's the notion of a narrative for an idea. For the audience to digest at an internal level, a deeper level, it has to be contained within something that we can ingest and digest.
And it's worth underlining the thing you passed over very quickly, but the extraordinary thing about an oak tree is that you perform it every night,
yes.
and it's a duologue.
Yes.
It's for two performers, but the other performer has never seen it, turns up an hour before
yes.
to chat through with you,
yes.
test microphone levels, stuff
yes,
like
but
that.
not to talk about the play.
Not to talk about it. And you talk them through it, either by handing them bits of script or just telling them, would you mind saying this?
Say things, yeah.
And then sometimes you communicate
one
through an
speech, I feed them a speech through an earpiece where they're centre stage. I'm still on stage, and the audience forget that I exist, which is beautiful, even though I'm whispering phrase by phrase, and they are speaking the speech that they're hearing in their ear. Yeah, and very direct, say hello,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Well, this is a particularly good illustration of the thing you're saying about how this works, that you're playing the hypnotist,
yeah.
and you say, look at me, look,
yeah.
ask me what I'm being, say, what are you being? And the person playing the father says, what are you being? He says, I'm being a hypnotist. Look, and then you say... And then
I say, I'm 46 years old, I've got a bald head, a red face and bony shoulders. Look. And I'm wearing a shiny waistcoat, looking like a hypnotist. And then I say, now ask who you are. Say, and me. And then they say...
And me?
You're a father. So this could be a woman. Let's pretend that Dan is a woman. You're a father. Your name's not that hard to do, really. That's a joke. Sorry, it's official. I say, and me, I say, you're a father. Your name's Andy. You're 46 years old, say you're 6'2". Your lips are cracked and your fingernails are dirty. You're wearing a crumpled Gore-Tex jacket, not far off. Your trousers are muddy, your shoes are muddy. You're unshaven, your hair is greying, and you have a bloodshot eye. And then I say, that's great, you're doing really well. And then I say, also, you'll volunteer for my hypnotism act. You'll volunteer because I accidentally killed your eldest daughter with my car. And you think I may have some answers to some questions you've been asking. I won't recognise you because in the 3 months since the accident, you've changed. We've both changed. And then I say, that's about as hard as it gets.
Yeah. And what I love about that is that it's because, of course, the way you describe yourself, of course, you're
completely me. Yeah.
You're describing you, but the way you're describing the other person is completely.
If the actor is near that description, I will change that description.
Right. So actually, you're doing the thing when you just said. Imagine that Dan is a woman and now you're inviting people to look at me as something else. Yeah. It's something that is actually where the piece ends, because the play leads towards this extraordinary scene where the father and his wife, I think that's right,
yes,
are both standing on either side of the stage pointing at a piano stool, because that's the only...
That's the only set. That's the set.
And one person is saying that's an oak tree.
Yeah.
And the other person is saying...
The wife, Dawn, says that is a tree. Yeah. The one person is saying that's my daughter.
Yeah.
And then Dawn says that's a tree. And this is me. I'm playing Dawn, the wife. That's a tree, pointing at a piano stool. I am your wife. I'm holding a chair like this. I'm holding a chair. I go, that's a tree. I'm your wife. This is our daughter. And that is a road. This is what matters. This is what we have to deal with. This. So none of these things are true. Which is that's a big statement in that play because she's called Dawn partly because she's totally clear and the light of day and everything she sees is what it is. Yeah. And her husband has entered a world of art. Has created a huge monumental work of art on this tree to transform it into his daughter. And she is furious with him. She says it's like a fucking intellectual exercise, Claire's death. She never existed for you in the first place. She was just some idea, the idea of a daughter, like I'm the idea of a wife, or Marcy is the other one, the idea of a girl. We never existed for you, did we? Not in flesh and blood. So you haven't lost anything, have you? Because she's still there in your head where she was in the first place. So there's a big sort of these are big theatrical statements. It's an idea. I'm an idea of a wife. This is an idea of a daughter. These things exist more as ideas than they do in reality. They are easier to deal with. Ideas are easier to deal with. And she is saying, look at the facts, look at the reality. So there's lots of stuff happening around those things. And those 4 statements that Dawn has, it's quite cruel because poor Dawn is refuted on every single level with those 4 statements, because none of that is what she says is true.
Well, I suppose that for me, the reason why I think that moment is so extraordinary is because it has all those conceptual questions, and it is asking questions about theatre, how we watch plays, how we understand what's going on stage. But it's a very moving scene on a story level,
yes.
and on a level of our emotional engagement with it. It's a very moving scene about a guy and a relationship that's at the end
Falling
of its
apart,
tether, and that's a very and it's fully satisfying on that level,
good.
as well as being constantly asking questions about the disconnect between those parts of the theatre. You said there was a point when you wrote, you did a kind of diary in Guardian about an oak tree, and you said, as a jobbing actor, I didn't have a particularly happy time with casting directors and agents. An oak tree is consciously designed to resist the notion of superficial typecasting that pervades the acting profession like a disease, a world where people have to look like their characters rather than their characters just happening to look like them.
Yeah.
Is that, do you want to say more about that?
I agree with everything I said. What do I want to say? Yes, well, that is a thing, isn't it? What's funny with an oak tree is that actors send me photographs and CVs, and I don't need them. I just don't need them. I don't care what they look like. And that, for me, is really important, because the business, theatre, has become very superficially obsessed with those kind of things, to the point where, we've got a policeman in this television drama, we must find someone who looks like a policeman. Rather than, policemen look like all different types of people. Or this is a chance to also challenge those things. In art, one can challenge those things. And often art doesn't do that. It doesn't challenge and just goes along with the mainstream. And that's a shame for me. So it is a challenge. And it is an understanding that look at the transformations that can take place and how much more interesting they are if the thing we say it is doesn't look like the thing we say it is. Like these objects in my arm, a packet of cigarettes or an apple or a penknife would be my mother. It's certain that penknife, let's say, cannot do any acting, but I am naming it as my mother, and somehow you project that onto that inanimate object, and that inanimate object, rather like the ready-mades, those pieces of the Marcel Duchamp ready-mades, put them in a gallery and they become more significant than what they are, something starts to happen to them, some transformation takes place. And that's nothing to do with the actor, it's to do with you as an audience, it's to do with you actively engaging in the process of transformation. So much now in the theatre is about completing the transformation materially, physically, figuratively, completing it on stage. So there is nothing left for the audience to do, really. And I'm not so excited about that. I think there should always be a contrast. I talked recently about... Mark Ravenhill's play Over There was a play set in about East and West Berlin about twins. And in a way, it suffered for me because they chose to use real twins in the play. And it became then, for me, a process, and for many people I spoke to, a process. Much of the play was wasted because I was going, they are very similar. Oh no, he's a bit fat, his nose is a bit different. Do you know what I mean? And because they tried to do the thing it says it is, it kind of, for me, reduced the art of it. Right. Whereas I would get the idea of twins immediately. I don't need to have the verification. Do you know what I mean? I don't need my eyes to be verified of that fact. My brain and my human symbol-reading brain, which every one of us has, will accept something, even if empirically, it's not there. That's how the brain is more. That part of us is more powerful. A hypnotist would say the subconscious is more powerful than the conscious. A hypnotist would say the imagination is stronger than the will. So to make a piece of art that enables the imagination, and I don't mean it in a sort of childlike sort of way, although I would say that children are much better at this than adults, that can enable that transformation to take place without having to help it in any figurative way.
But that's also, it's also about kind of liveness on some level, isn't it? Because it seems to me that one thing that's often happening with your work, and particularly with the author, but actually all of them, is creating situations where possibly random things might happen or fortuitous connections might be made, like with the props in my arm. Whereas you say it's not even just that you go, I shall treat that penknife as if it's the mother. You go, I'm now seeing the mother as a penknife, and that's interesting.
Well, again, the oak tree, the Michael Craig Martin piece, I wish I had it here. It says. There has to be a container for that idea. You have to have a container. So here's the glass of water. It contains the idea of a tree. I am Tim Crouch. I contain the idea of Hamlet, for example, or any one of you here containing the idea of Hamlet. So I think it's very important that there should be a material presence for that idea. But the idea of randomness is also very exciting for me. There's a great Marcel Duchamp quote, in fact, talking about what he would call the art coefficient, which is the thing that exists between the unexpressed but intended and the unintentionally expressed.
Yeah.
The unexpressed but intended and the unintentionally expressed. So what you intend for this play, you can't control it, ultimately. Listen, you can't. You're in a business that you just can't control. And if you do want to control it, get out now. And people do want to control it, sadly. Because what happens is you are in a bank of people, you, an audience, with an energy, an interpretive energy, that will take what you are intending and read something completely different from it. And on one level, you could try and close that down to reduce that. Or on another level, you can celebrate that, and let it go wherever it wants to go. So, an oak tree, I don't know how it will be every night. It will be different. It will fuck up all the time, an oak tree. It will be wrong. It will be wrong. In the traditional sense of a finely worded cadence or a beautiful rhythmic exchange or,
but it'll never go right, though.
It will never go right. No, it will never go right. And I say that before the show. There's no right way of doing this, and there's no wrong way of doing it. The way we do it tonight is the way it will be, and it will never be any other time like this. It will not be like this ever again. And that's a great liberation. And I think there's a huge overemphasis in theatre sometimes on getting things right or fixing the perfect moment. And as long as the actions in the pieces are open. As long as they're open, then they allow interpretation and they allow you to go off wherever you want to go, For example, what am I thinking? Yeah, there's a line in my arm where I say, not having cried for as long as I could remember, I had now taken to crying like a newborn lamb looking for its mother in the rain. And I carry on with the story. It's not my intention to act those emotions, but I want to give you those emotions. This is a tragic story. I end up dead, but I don't ever describe my emotions apart from that one moment. And my hope is that you will suddenly see what the truth of this story is in terms of the emotional impact on this character. But I don't need to show you. If I show you, then the only image you will have is the image I'm showing you. If I tell you, then you will each see a different image. Do you understand? You'll each have your own image. I talk a lot about nothing. You see lots of stuff, but we don't show you it. If that makes sense. And that's a key in the author, of course, absolutely. And my arm as well. And hugely in England, where you are encouraged to see, hugely different places. But we are not going to show it to you.
And in fact, there's a very specific, in the show England, is another duologue, kind of, that you and Hannah Ringer from the Shunt Collective both perform, but you're both playing the same character.
Yes.
But what's interesting is that a man and a woman playing a character whose gender is not identified just means that we have very intimate knowledge of a person who's clearly very living and 3D, but I have no idea what their gender is.
Well, although, that's good for you, that's right, but some people will immediately make assumptions. So Hannah, we played it last week, and Hannah came back after the show saying, they thought he was a man, shit. And, Lynn Gardner in The Guardian said, it's about a woman and her American boyfriend, and I'm going, well, hang on a minute, what about me? What was I doing there? So what it's leaving open is for you to go wherever you want to go with it. Yes, absolutely, Dan, well read. There is no evidence whatsoever. There is no evidence of gender whatsoever in the piece. Yeah. But there are suggestions that people will pick up on that might not be there, that they'll create themselves, and they'll make decisions, and then they'll probably stick with them. Particularly in the author as well, that happened. We can talk about that later. And I'm very excited about that because England takes it one step further. The idea of a container, of a glass of water as an oak tree, there isn't even really a glass of water anymore. There are two material containers for that character, but that character vibrates very fast between those two material containers, me and Hannah. And so you cannot say, if I would say draw a picture of this character, you'd go, well, I don't know. I don't know what it is. Whereas if I was playing Hamlet, I go draw a picture of Hamlet, you probably draw me.
Yeah.
Even though there isn't a Hamlet. Do you know what I mean? A Hamlet does not exist. If I say, what does Hamlet look like? You'll probably think he looks like Jude Law. Or he looks like, Simon Russell Beale, or whatever. Because you can't identify a Hamlet physically. Because they only become manifest when they are materialised inside an actor. And then they look like that actor.
But is that, I mean, what always strikes me about that is that, in a way, what you're doing is bringing theatrical representation, let's say, somehow much closer to the imagination, in the sense that, I can, if I say I'm imagining a person,
yes,
I could well imagine a person and know perhaps what they were wearing.
Yes.
But if they say, is it a man or woman? I go, oh, I hadn't thought of that.
Yes.
And that's not an absurd thing to say about your mind.
No.
But it's slightly absurd to say about a person.
Well, when there is a physical object, human being there, yes. I think it's important that the issues of dematerialisation. So with the Michael Craig Martin oak tree, you could just have an empty space and go, this is an oak tree. I've turned this empty space into an oak tree. And it's nowhere near as satisfying as giving something that is an opposite to that thing, in a way. It's much more satisfying that it's not even an oak tree-shaped glass, right, or it's not a glass that has a picture of an oak tree on it. The distance is so profound between what it is and what it says it is. And I feel that, with the idea of I can imagine a person, if somebody stands here and I imagine a person who doesn't look like that, who they are, that's for me very helpful, to have almost like a frame to place the imagination onto.
Right.
Feels more useful. It certainly feels more material, or there's a greater action to be had.
Because I did when I saw England first up to the
in Edinburgh,
Fruit Market gallery, because England is always performed in galleries for various reasons that kind of connects with the story. But one of the things that was interesting is because there's both of you playing this part. And I think you pick up quite quickly that, well, he's not going to tell us, or they're not going to tell us what the gender of this person is. You also it makes you aware, well, actually what they look like tells me nothing about what this person looks like. But I am surrounded by art. And so there were points of it, I hope you're not going to think this is totally rude, but there were points where I was thinking, well, I can listen to them and look at these fantastic...
I'm thrilled when people do that. It's not rude at all. I am thrilled. I'm thrilled.
Terribly well.
He's really good. I would talk... this is Duchamp again, talking about retinal art. The retina, art that plays on the retina. I'm excited in not anti-retinal. Art that you see not on the back of your eyes, but you see here somewhere. That's the most exciting place for me, and that should be everywhere in theatre. That should be where you are, That's how any piece of theatre, probably, that's where it sits. In that other part, there is what you see, and there's also hopefully what you create around what you see, and it should be a dialogue between those two things. So yes, we would be very happy for people, we are very happy, some people do go for a wander and look at the work and listen, but it is theatre. So here we go. Could it just be a novel? Could you just sit and read it? Because a novel has no material container, it just happens in your head, although there are words on the page. That's a material of sorts. Or a storyteller who just tells you a story, and I am telling a story, but I also think I'm trying to push forward notions of the materiality, the physicality, the action, the three-dimensionality of theatre. These are distinguishing features for me. The liveness of theatre, the presence of you in the theatre, that's absolutely key. The audience, those are things that I think keep it away from it just being a piece of text that is read. England is odd. It could be read as a piece of text. It's written in the first act just as a piece of text. But you could sit and read it, but it only, for me, comes alive when it is in the presence of art and it is embodied in those two performers and the contradictions that are presented by those two performers in your reading of that text or your hearing of that text. The second act of England, which you might have a question about, but that then takes it even further. So in the second act of England is about a heart transplant, really, but it's also about the commercial values of art. And in the second act, the protagonist from the first act, I won't say male or female, the protagonist travels 4,000 miles to a nondescript Asian country, Central Asian country, to give to the wife of the man whose heart is now inside them a work of art, to say thank you, a work of art from England. So there are three characters in the second act. One is that protagonist, one is an interpreter, and one is the grieving widow. And the grieving widow is, I think, the most fully rounded character I've ever written, even though she doesn't say anything and she has no material presence. She is in you, she is you. So the protagonist will talk to you directly and say thank you. The interpreter will pick somebody else and say thank you. Every word spoken is English, but very quickly we are aware that two languages are being spoken, and slowly you begin to understand what you are. So at one point I say it's hard to see how they're feeling with just the eyes. So a little tiny little thing, and you go, fuck, oh, I'm veiled. And then another point I go, I have a tissue. If there's a long silence, I look at you, and then I go, I have a tissue. And you go, fuck, I'm crying. Again, you could do a traditional staging of that scene. You'd have an actress in a niqab speaking Punjabi. You'd have an interpreter who could speak Punjabi. You'd have the protagonist who would then go, tell her da-da-da-da-da. The interpreter would go, blah, 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 blah. She would go, blah, 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 blah. You would see her tears. You would see everything. But it's much more rewarding for me in the second act of England that you don't see any of that. But that is present. It is present. Two languages are present. Huge emotion is present. At the end of the play, she asks if she can touch the protagonist. And so, it's not as though one member of the audience goes, I'll volunteer. But, just standing, and you just have to do this. And you, as an audience, know that you, as a character, are touching my chest. Or listening to my chest. And then she asks if she can hold you, she asks if she can touch you. And then touch you, and the last lines are the protagonist going, what's she saying? So it's clear that she's saying something really quite important whilst holding this protagonist. But everything is in the space and nothing is in the material. Or you are the container. So it was a very satisfying thing to think about how literal one could be with that scene and how uninteresting in a way that would be. And then to think how conceptual maybe, but not in a dry way, how conceptual one can be with that scene and how satisfying that is in terms of you seeing things that aren't there and you finishing the piece, you completing the action.
What I want to come back to in a moment with England is the thing of you looking at the audience.
Yes.
But I want to come back to it because I just want to think about the author.
Yes.
And it says to me that this is a show. Do you call them plays?
Yes.
You do call them plays rather than performances.
No, I would call them plays, and then that's a big thing for me. It's a play, and then if we have a problem with that, then broaden the definition of the word play. Right. Otherwise, we're just going to get into a right old pickle. Okay, right. Well, then I'm fine. I'll call it a play. The play could, it seems to me, equally have been called The Audience. Yes.
And it's because clearly the audience is characterised. There is an audience person in the show. The audience is very directly addressed. Yes. And it's very directly invited to respond to a lot of things. And in relation to what you said before, I can see there are certain ways in which this could be talked about in terms of freeing up the audience. Yes. But I have to say, my experience
of the author
was probably not that I felt particularly freed.
No. Yes.
In experience. And I wondered sort of how you'd situate it in relation to that sense of wanting to free the audience in certain ways, but whether that's what
how great. Yes. So, I mean, I've had a little correspondence with somebody who hasn't seen my work ever before, but has seen my teaching work. And I've taught alongside them. And they were very frustrated with the play because I didn't allow the audience in. When we asked those questions, they weren't allowed to then start having a conversation or a dialogue. And that's not the point of that play. That is not the point of the play, to stop the play in good Boal fashion and go, so how can we solve this problem? Do you know what I mean? That's not what it is. But absolutely that direct address is key. Those direct questions are key. It was first worked through in England, actually. In the first half of England, we do say, does anyone have any questions? And this happens. People do have questions. They might ask, are you okay? Where's your boyfriend? They might ask, how much of this is scripted and how much of this is improvised? We've had that quite a lot. It's kind of like weird, but that's okay. They can ask whatever they like. And we will answer them.
Character, as it were.
There isn't a character. We are in that scene, in that act, we are guides. So we just, I don't feel like I'm adopting a character position. I say regularly, I don't understand this. I talk about my boyfriend. I don't have a boyfriend. But I'm not physically altering myself at all. So, no, when somebody asks that question, we'll go, that's a great question. My boyfriend, I don't know where my boyfriend is at the moment. Does anybody have any other questions? So we will answer them. So the author takes it one step further and goes, are you okay if we carry on? an audience member might go, no. Do you want me to stop? Yes. And we'll carry on. Yeah, really important. Really important. And I don't think that's a phrase we had in rehearsal was, don't trash the audience. Don't trash the audience. And so what would happen is, if one of us in the company had a question directly to an audience member, it would go, are you okay if we carry on? They might go yes, or they might go no. And then the play will carry on, and it's important that I then stay with you until you're okay. And then we go back into the play again. These are just small little things, but it's very hard, really hard to hold that. Because what I want to go is, I'm sorry, right. I'm sorry I'm having to be like this with you, but I want to just hear what you have to say, but also, this is not the time. Right. We're in the middle of a play. Yeah. We're in the middle of a play, and rather like the oak tree, every word I say and every word that Act says is scripted. Right. And people have sometimes said, why don't you let them improvise for a bit? And I go, fuck off, it's a play. It's like saying to David Hare or Tom Stoppard, Tom, I would like to at this point just improvise for a bit. It's incredibly controlling of you if you won't let me improvise for a bit. And you go, fuck off, I've wrote this play. Don't improvise, write your own play. All right. So that's not what the author is about. The author is not about prizing open response and debate. In that way, it is about prizing open response and debate in a much, I'm not going to be qualitative about it, but it's a very different way, in a very different, formally contained way, I think, the author does. So, yeah, it's hard for us as actors, because we have I forget how lovely it is to stand on stage with the bright lights in your face and you can't see the audience. It's great. You can do what the hell you like. But with the author, I'm talking to somebody sitting here and here, and we don't do much talking to somebody over there, because we hope that you are watching and I'll do this. This is my little cast here. Talk to the people here, and other people, Adrian or Esther, will talk to the people over there, and Vic will talk to people over there, and occasionally we will throw it out to the people, but we are talking. It's weird. I had long chats with people. There's a long piece of music that plays before the show. I get involved with the people. I'm not pretending. Helen Freshwater. Yeah. She sat next to me, and it was very odd because I mistook her for a woman called from Stan's Caff. Bollocks, what's her name? I mistook her for that woman anyway. And that woman from Stan's Caff and I had done a Roto Zaza piece called Double Talk, where we were Double Talk or Double Think, where we had been on stage, we didn't know what we were doing, and we couldn't see each other. Anyway, so I got this was the audience were coming in. It was like, hello, I'm she knew who I was, and we got chatting. I said all these stupid things like, are you still in Birmingham? And she was going, the Midlands. And she was going, I was in Nottingham, but years ago. I was going, oh right, Heather. Her name's Heather Burton, is the other actor. I thought this was Heather. She said her name was Helen. I thought she said Heather because she looked, and then she let me get away with being a twat actually by just talking to her as if she was Heather. She didn't go, look, it's. And then she sent me an email. I sent an email with a photograph of Heather Burton on, going, that's who I thought you were. And she went, oh my God, it does look like me. And so I'm sorry I didn't correct you, but I didn't think you would be in the right state of mind to have a proper conversation with me. And it was like, wow, no, I absolutely was in the frame of mind to have a proper conversation with. I was having a proper conversation. I was failing because I got it all wrong. I thought she was Heather and she was Helen. But there was no question about like, I'm sorry, I'm just about to do my part. I'm just about to. Don't talk to me. Because what I love about that play is I can go, well, that's right, Heather. I'm sorry, I've got la 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 blah 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 blah. Here's the text. The music plays. I'm really, really sorry about that earlier. And she said, oh no, it's absolutely fine. Do you know what I mean? And that's great. That's about finding the agency for the piece inside the audience. That's feels really important, that we should not be separate from you. No. And I mean it genuinely. I don't mean it in a fake way. I'm getting there with England. I got there a little bit formally differently in an oak tree by having an actor who was as good as an audience member. Do you know what I mean? And I had to talk to them and guide them, and it's because they knew as much as you did about the play. So I'm slowly getting closer and closer to actually going hello, and then saying, and then that final speech, and then I know the impact that's going to have and the difficulty that's going to have. But that's the nature of the play, to create some difficulty. We create difficulty.
And in doing so, I suppose, just in the same way that, all of your shows in a sense, are sort of problematizing what a performer does. This one, in a sense, I did feel that what it does is make you self-conscious in a more direct and perhaps...
Makes you an audience member self-conscious.
Yeah, that's right. Of what your position is, because to some extent the show is clearly inviting you to do things that you don't normally do in the theatre. Well, I don't normally do in the theatre. For example, we all sung along to the High School Musical.
Yeah, that's unusual, but that's lovely as well. Great,
quite
carry
nice.
on. Yeah, nice, lovely.
We applauded the first time I saw it. We applauded a little dance.
Yes, the lights. Yes,
and that's the sort of thing I don't normally do. But my feeling was very much that so the normal limits have been expanded, but I feel there are further limits, and I'm not completely sure where they are. And I would have moments of terrible vicarious embarrassment for other people who I felt had transgressed, who kept talking.
There was an amazing, there was a couple of times when an audience member just started to carry on the story. Vic said, he says, you go, or someone else go, he said. And I think we just left the pause a little bit too long. And this woman said, so I'm in the flotation tank, and another performance, someone said, so what's your name? Talking to the person next to me. And it's beautiful, and it's also... But then we pick on that with the Karen exchange, the hot seating of Karen. That's where it gets crunchy. That's where it suddenly sort of, I think, makes sense fully in there, because there is a hot seating situation. You've ever done hot seating? I'm sure you all have done hot seating. I had this experience of doing this Carol Churchill play with a director who made us all go out and find people and interview them and bring those people back, and I had the most distressing time with that experience, with that exercise. This is a chance in this play to sort of get that out of my system. So she's gone to a shelter, she's found a woman who's been raped as a teenager by her father. She says that's just like my character. It's just, terrifying. But we're not going to play it as terrifying. We're going to play it how you would when you talk about theatre. That's how it is. We're talking about theatre. And then this hot seating takes place with me pushing her and pushing her and pushing her. And then she says, can we stop, Tim? And I hold it and hold it and hold it, and then I go, would anybody else like to ask Karen any questions? Esther, are you okay if we improvise? She doesn't answer. Karen, is that okay with you? You all right if other people ask some questions? Would anyone like to ask Karen any questions? Now, I don't think it could be any clearer that I am perpetrating an act of abuse here. Yeah. I don't think it could be any clearer, but 90% of the time, maybe 85% of the time, people would ask Karen questions. I don't know if that happened the night you were there.
It did, the second time,
And it's like, oh my God. Sometimes beautifully people go, no, there are no questions for Karen. And one person just said, do you want to thump Tim? It's a great question. It's a great question, fantastic. But then I think even after that question had been asked, somebody then asked a question like, and where's your mother now, Karen? And it's like, Jesus, what are we doing? What are you doing? It's not an attempt to attack an audience. It's about an audience understanding their responsibilities and how easy it is to fall into this casual abuse, because it's what we think is needed. And we are so well trained as audiences that if we say any questions, so I've got a question. When you were rehearsing, did you go? Must think of a question. I will be helping the situation if I think of the question, even if the situation is profoundly disturbing and abusive. Maybe I can make it better by getting involved in that abusive situation. It was very telling and frightening, and then Adrian diffuses it by going, I have a question. What was it like working with Daniel Craig? Which is, again another sort of. It's trying not to trash the people who've spoken. She's not going to answer those questions. Karen, Esther, will not answer the questions if they are hot-seated questions. I will say, does anyone else have any questions? I'm excited about those questions being put out there and the ripples of that stuff going through you, the shock waves. But again, it's not a time to stop the play and have a debate.
Right.
after the play, let's have a debate, and the deal with the Royal Court was the audience were never asked to leave until they had left. No one would ever sort of switch the lights on and the ushers would say, would you go? We had a half an hour maximum to allow an audience to sit in the theatre and talk. And some days they were there for 15 minutes. There were groups of people just sitting and talking about the play. That's good. That's a good debate. The idea that the actors must instigate, provoke, and also be involved in that. It doesn't feel necessary, actually. Provoke and instigate, great. As much as you can, actors. But don't feel as well you have to also own the feedback to those provocations and those instigations. Because you have to be, as an audience, you have to be aware that you're okay. You're in the real world, as are we, but you are in the real world, so it's your job. There are more of you than there are of us. It's your job to sort this stuff out, or to think about this, or to find a place in your life where you can consider these things. And we don't have to be nannied. An audience shouldn't be nannied by the actors. So there are some pretty strong provocations, and it can be quite uncomfortable. And you're having to look at each other. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. There is no darkness. And some people found that very difficult, to be visible. And we find it difficult because there are people who are looking like shit. And like all my shows in England, we look at people who are completely not with it, who hate it, who can't deal with it, who aren't present. And it's really hard for Hannah and me to go, that's okay, that's okay. The fact you're like that, it's okay. I'm still going to carry on here. All the work requires you to be present. And if you are not present, you won't get it, and you'll probably hate it, and that's fine. But I think to make a piece of theatre that doesn't require its audience to be present is a cop-out.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And a lot of theatre doesn't require its audience to be present. So if I'm going to go there, to that place where I require my audience to be present, I have to accept the consequences.
Obviously, I'd like to hand over to you to ask your non-abusive questions. I just got one thing I wanted to do. Have you heard about what Ian Hart has just done?
No. Lovely Ian Hart. No.
Speaking in tongues.
Yes.
He apparently got so fed up with a member of the audience that he jumped off the stage or went to the pastor and was very abusive to somebody who he thought was talking to them, which was very interesting. This is the report. He was saying, you're disrespecting me, you're not respecting the other actors. I said, this is the person, obviously, he shouted out, you must be mistaking me for someone else, and he just lost it completely. Spittle started flying out of his mouth and the ushers were holding him back, which of course made me think of
the second actor, the Vic's
character. But then it's also, he was asked to talk about it, and Carrie Fox, who's his co-star in the show, says that for her, audiences are incredibly important because their mood affects her performance. And Hart responded, I just think this is such an interesting, weird quote. That's what I hate about theatre. What Kerry's just outlined as a pleasure and a joy, to me is an intrusion on what I do for a living. The audience, I can't stand you. Collectively, not individually. I'm sure you're all lovely people, but as a collective entity, I find you abhorrent. I genuinely don't understand from your side of that divide what it is that you want. That's up to you to decide what it is you come in with, whatever it is you want to get out of that experience. Is that extraordinary?
Where did you get that from? Was it in The Guardian or something?
It was online. I can't quite remember where. But I
would like that. That's an extraordinary thing for an actor to say, but it's not surprising in a way because that's not been the focus.
Right.
I've been in rehearsal processes for years, and the audience has never been the focus.
Right.
And I'm writing a piece for a dancer at the moment, God help me. Anyway, a dance company in Brighton. She's a very respected dancer. And I'm excited about trying to get the audience's heads, the inside of the audience's heads to dance. Do you know what I mean? That's sort of one of my thoughts about that, is to get the inside of the audience. And in a way, I'm trying to get the inside of the audience's heads to do the things that I don't need to do. I don't have to work hard. Maybe Ian Hart works really fucking hard to get his character. I don't work hard. I don't do warm-up. I don't want to do a warm-up. It feels wrong for me to do a warm-up. I want to be from you and of you. Do you know what I mean? Of you. And if I have warmed up for half an hour, I will be on a performance level that will separate me from you. And then there will be a certain dishonesty, I think, about the transformation that takes place. In an oak tree, the transformation happens with you witnessing it, not in some rehearsal room or some green room or in the wings just before you walk on stage, but it happens there. and you are going to do it. So for Ian Hart to go, I despise the audience, what the hell is he doing? What the hell is he...
But I suppose it just made me think that one of the things that I think the author does talk about is the fuzziness that some theatre has about its relationship to the audience. There's that great line early on, I'll misquote it, but about... I saw a show last year and I thought the audience were badly
written. It had been badly written, that we had to imagine, that we had to pretend, had been poorly imagined, that I'd been poorly imagined, the audience had been badly written, that they all had to pretend themselves. Yes, that's a really heartfelt thing for me, and I have seen, there was one particular piece, the hour in which we knew nothing of ourselves. It was the Peter Handke play at the National. I don't know if anyone saw it, but I did feel that as an audience member I had been badly imagined. I couldn't work out if it was the writer or the director. I love Peter Handke. I didn't know that play, but I just felt like, well, no, you've got the wrong idea of us, actually, there, mate. We have not been well written here. That's very important. And of course, what Adrian does is... It's terrifying. Adrian, as the audience member, is he gets the shit kicked out of him, and he comes back. He comes back for more, and he comes back for more. You know, that's what. There's a big critique of audience in Adrian, because Adrian goes, "I love this place. It's the safest place in the world, isn't it? Don't you think, whoever?" And usually they go, "No," which is great. And I go, and he goes, "Oh, it's so safe. Nothing happens in here. Nothing real. Nothing really happens, does it?" And that's such a provocation, because the idea that your feelings, your emotions, your thoughts are not real. You know, there is that idea that here I get into the theatre and it is a disconnect from life for me. Wow, how lovely. For me, I get into the theatre and it is the opposite of a disconnect from life. It is an increasing of a connect to life. Theatre is just a form of human communication from the everyday world, you know. It might be a little formalised, but it's still about how we are in our lives. It should be about that, not, you know, how we can escape from our lives. Right. And something like Ian Hart suggesting, you know, that seems to imply that's what he wants from an audience. He wants an audience to be in awe, in silent awe of his mastery or his virtuosity or his technique, and to be hypnotised, and in fact to be placed into not an active hypnotic trance, but a somnambulistic hypnotic trance, which is a very bad hypnotic trance. You know, where you just virtuosity. I had a big discussion about this in dance circles, because that's very big in dance circles, the virtuoso. And I have a big problem with technical excellence. I don't like technical excellence. I don't like the idea of an actor being a genius, or the actor being anything other than a human being like me, who just happens to have the agency that theatre has placed on them to transform. That's all. And transform, as I would say again and again and again, ain't no special thing. It's a thing that human beings can do from the age of 5 months, maybe. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Not a thing that can be taught. It's just a thing that we have. Problem. I mean, actors are up their arses, and audiences can be up their arses for allowing those things to happen.
Great. Can I ask
that one out.
for questions? I see a question in the dark.
Grant.
Hi, Grant.
2 questions related about what you seem to ask a lot of your audience. And I think you wrote in The Guardian about when Michael Myers showed a play, we're about to go to Plan B with
Plan B,
Oak Tree. And I was wondering if you ever had to go to Plan B. And connected to that, about giving the audience a script. It seems like you're giving them this idea of agency that you keep on mentioning.
Yeah.
And what Dan said he found kind of difficult. He wasn't sure how much agency he had, and your response to, wait, fuck off, this is my play. There seems to be certain limitations. There seems to be somewhat of a script that the audience is supposed to kind of play along with. And I was wondering how you manage that.
Yeah, okay. So, an Oak Tree. The plan B is if my actor didn't arrive an hour before the show. And Mike Myers at the show in New York, and he arrived like 15 minutes before the show. Bit scary, because everyone had come to see Mike Myers. Nobody had come to see an Oak Tree. Ridiculous. The New York producers made a grave error by advertising who was doing the show each night. So plan B would be to get an audience member out. I would say, to instigate plan B, I'd say I need someone who's happy to sight read, happy to wear an earpiece in their ear, and they need to know that this play concerns the death of a child, and if that story is close to them in any way, I advise them against doing it. I need them to do that. Otherwise, if I just took anyone, There is a danger with an oak tree that if, let's say, for example, I took someone out of the audience who was mildly dyslexic or didn't have the ability to make themselves heard on stage, or didn't have the ability to just be present on stage, or a whole number of things, then the play would no longer have been about, it's a story, there's a story. It's a story about two men meeting after the death of a child and trying to help each other. And if I had someone in that role of the father who didn't have those basic technical competencies, then the play would not be about what the story is. It would be about the audience watching someone struggle to get through an hour and 10 minutes. And I don't want that. I want there to be a balance between the two. So yes, this actor doesn't know the play. Yes, this actor is making it up physically and emotionally, and in terms of what they commit and their instinct, they're making it up in the moment. But there is a script. And I think that's very important in terms of freedoms. You know, the notion of an art of an art form is to find the freedom of expression within a form. You know, that's what the sonnet's all about. You know, Shakespeare could have gone, well, my girlfriend's really gorgeous. I think she's fantastic. But give it a sonnet form, and then you have to find my mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. Do you know what I mean? Then you have to find the form will push that into somewhere else. So I'm having a form. The form is really clear. It's really clear in the author, and it's really clear in An Oak Tree and in the other plays. I want to try and get as much freedom and agency within that form, but I don't want to destroy that form. That form feels like an act of honour, in a way, to the notion of theatre, the notion of a play. And in the author, the audience don't have a script. They don't have a script. I welcome them to respond any way they like, but I'm not going to go off-piste, so to speak, or jump rails and start going down a different way, because this piece has been worked for 2 years. I've been working on the author, and it's not a journalistic piece, it's not a question time kind of piece. It's a story about a group of people who were profoundly affected by an experience they had, and I want to hold on to that. And I want you to, I want to provoke you, I think, in terms of saying, are you okay? Is this all right? Can everyone see all right, is a line that happens in the play. Like, can you all see all right? You know, that's an easy question. They'll go, yes. You know, that's fine. We don't have to stop there. But they're all part of a similar sort of thing. And I don't have an idea of what the best answer for those questions would be. Any answer, even no answer, would still be fine, because the question becomes present in the space. Karen, does anyone else have any questions for Karen? If nobody asks any questions, that's great. If somebody does ask a question, I haven't said, would anyone like Karen to answer any questions that you have? I haven't said that. I've said, do you have any questions? Yes, I have all these questions. That's great. Theatre and questions are fantastic. That's what theatre should do. It should be asking questions. So there are questions. The script, though, does not include, in the course of the play, an answering session from the audience.
Thank you. Another question, Ben.
You have great passion for the audience, it seems. But in the script for the author, the last bit explains Adrian talking to the audience afterwards, asking them how they felt about it. And it said maybe they'll swap numbers and go for a coffee or go to the cinema one day. And in the performance I saw, that didn't happen. Yeah. And I felt incredibly abandoned.
Oh, I'm sorry.
As an audience. Why was that? Why did you
we talked and talked at length. I want you to know that we didn't do that without an enormous amount of thought. I still don't know if we've got the right ending for the play. It's difficult for me because I don't ever see it. So I've gone by then. So I trust my two directors, Andy Smith and Carl James. They're used to, in the first draft of the play, there was another character at that moment. There was an older woman who stood up and said, could I say a few words? And it was just Adrian and her were the remaining actors. And she talked about the death of her husband. She talked about reading an article in the Reader's Digest. And then she talked about that she was going to go and see 39 Steps next week. And Adrian said he'd seen it and he thinks it's really great. And then we got rid of her because we thought that the quality of that ending could be given to Adrian, and Adrian could do it. And I didn't want to abuse an actor by asking him to sit through the whole of that play just for speaking at the end. That's a big thing. There was a big issue around abuse for me and how we were treated, and we had a beautiful rehearsal process for this play. And then at one point, Adrian, did I tell you, Adrian was due to say once I'd left, the death of the author, the writing is leaving the writer, Adrian was going to go, has anyone booked for Cock? Which is the play that was coming on to the Royal Court after this one. You know, and that felt fantastically right, absolutely, because it's the kind of thing Adrian's character would, and actually Adrian would say, "Has anyone booked for Cock?" It's funny, and it's the name of the next show, and you know, and it's about Adrian going, "Well, there we go. I've had my face kicked in. What's next?" You know? So that was wrong. It felt wrong. We tried to do it like this in a read-through in May. We did a read-through of the play for all the staff of the Royal Court. At the end of the show, when I took myself off to kill myself, Adrian was so upset that he couldn't speak. And various members of staff were so upset they couldn't speak, and so nothing happened at all. Adrian came out to the garden at the Royal Court just saying, "I don't want you to kill yourself, I don't want you to kill yourself." You know, there was just it was a very, very emotional thing. And then we thought, okay, well, what are we going to do here? What are we going to do here? I don't want there to be necessarily a post-show discussion written into the play. We did one post-show discussion, didn't we? You were there, were you there? You weren't there. Oh. We did one post-show discussion on the 22nd. But it shouldn't have to be legislated. We don't want to sort of organise that. Adrian says here, would anyone like to say something now that we're on our own? Would anyone like to say a few words, good, bad or indifferent? Would you, Peter? Would you, anyone? He does, he gets up and he goes, "Lovely to meet you," the person he's doing. He walks down to the middle, he goes, "Lovely to meet you." And as much as possible, there is a resolution. And also, as much as possible, there's a huge question mark. What have we just experienced? What have we just seen? And I think if we did go, okay, would anyone like to say anything? Then there is a danger. There is a danger of it just starting to lose control. And I didn't want that to happen. I didn't want control to be lost. Control, you know, you might be losing control personally. That's okay. You know, people were very angry at the end of the show. Very angry. And some people were totally, totally amazed at the end of the show. But I think if we had tried to sort of sanitise it too much, it would have been a problem. I'm sorry you felt abandoned.
No, but I kind of enjoyed feeling abandoned.
Oh, that's all right. I'm not sorry at all.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Do you get abandoned quite a lot in your life? Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes.
When I watched the play, I felt it might just be me, a divided audience between those who were very familiar with the process of theatre. It made for me, because I assisted director in the Royal Court, so I, have been in that. It feels like being on one side of the fence or the other, and things like you reminded me when you were talking about the Karen moment,
the hot seating,
the hot seating. And I felt that there was some of the audience who'd be really familiar with that process and get the joke that it was an abuse, or get the provocation that it was abuse. But my boyfriend, who was sitting next to me and encountering that concept for the first time, might not get it.
Right.
And I found it a very, very interesting text for that reason. But I wondered if you encountered that question how you
and you might say the same because this was a question that came up in our seminar discussion about how far it relies on people having a certain familiarity with plays like Sarah Kane's Blasted and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't think it is just a play about theatre, and even if it was, I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with that, because I said earlier, I think these are just forms of communication that human beings have, and so we need to look at how those acts of communication take place. And the big form of communication is in terms of the nature of a spectator of an act. So I'm exploring that, and we are performing in a theatre. People who go to the theatre usually go to the theatre. That's why they're in the theatre. And I'm interested, for those who don't work in the theatre, I'm interested for them to think about the processes that have led them to see the thing that they're seeing. So, for example, there is a hugely abusive play discussed in the author. Let's say it's called The Abuser. I don't know. There's a intentionally ambiguous. Vic says, I played the part of the father in the play, the abuser in the title. And it's interesting because that could actually be, the title could be the author, in which case I would be the abuser. So there is that terrible play. I don't think it's obscure how we talk about that. I think that's a language of representation that would exist in film and television. will exist in our media, in our mainstream media. A lot of this stuff, the predilection towards realism is just lifted from film and TV, but it's still, sadly, a mainstay of theatre. That theatre is still trying to make things look real, really look like they are really happening. The word real appears over and over again in this play. So I don't think there's a confusion. The idea of the hot seating, it's pretty clear what's happening. There is a critique of that process as a rehearsal process. I agree with you. There are critiques of many processes as rehearsal processes. I also agree with you. I'm not writing a critique as a journalist or an academic. I am countering a critique, but I'm countering by presenting a play. The play is this play. That feels important for me, that I should be doing that. So you're experiencing these two levels. One is you're in a play itself. You're actually in a play, and you're thinking about what the play is that we're in. And the other one is we're talking about another play, and you're thinking about the processes that led to that play. And I hope that the play, the author, the processes that made that play are visible. Because nothing is hidden from you in the author. There are 4 people in the space sitting and chatting to you. Do you know what I mean? There has been no hot seating in the development of the production that you are witnessing. But you might understand that there are other processes that were applied, like looking at people having their head chopped off, like hot seating, like going through improvisation, like visiting countries, doing research. All those attempts to find a verisimilitude, a truthfulness. Trying to raid from real life to make the work feel more real, that I have a lot of problems with. And I don't necessarily think that's going to be only for people who are involved in the processes of theatre making. Did your boyfriend think that it was?
No, it wasn't that. We just had quite a long discussion about it, and then kind of thinking about the character of Adrian, who was in a lot of ways quite a naive audience member and isn't involved. He doesn't understand the hot seating, does he?
No.
Because he wants to ask her about...
Yeah, about Daniel Craig. Yeah, no, but that's a terrible indictment. Not an indictment, but it's just a fact of life, isn't it? That actors get very pompous and serious about their work, and in fact, a lot of audiences just saw them on the telly. It's telling that Esther was in a film where she played that girl. And the reason why she's there is because she was in a film, and that's why it sold out, because she'd been on the telly. You might have seen me on the telly or in the newspapers. And I even say, I think we were sold out almost before the run started. I think many of them had come to see Esther because of the film, because there'd been an article about her in a Sunday newspaper. So I'm trying to tap in always to those things. And then, of course, in that speech at the end, and before then, way before then, we are moving far away from just talking about theatre. We're talking about representations of violence, we're talking about looking at acts of violence, and then towards the end we're talking about looking at indecent acts of abuse. And very quickly, I think, quite early on in the play, we begin to realise that we are not just exploring a theatrical process, we're exploring a process whereby the world is mediated for our viewing. And that feels very, very important to take it away from it just being a theatre piece.
I think it's a question.
Yeah,
Hello.
In the performance that I attended, I think 3 people walked out during the duration of the play, and I understand. I haven't read the script myself, but my housemates tell me that there is a scripted walkout in the script.
Yes.
And I was wondering what your intention was in having that. Was that sort of an indication to the audience that there was an escape route, having a demonstrative example of somebody leaving if it was too much for them? Was that what you wanted to do, or was it commentary on something else? Or I was just wondering what you
I think the first. To present a model of behaviour in the theatre. And to encourage, is that the right word? But certainly allow people to understand that is possible.
That was the freedom that they had.
Yeah, and if people want to walk out in the speech in the dark, they can do. We would bring the lights up. There was an infrared monitor, so the stage manager could see the audience. And if someone was looking like they wanted to go, we would just bring the lights up. I would stop speaking. Someone would walk out. The lights would go down to dark again. And then it happened once in that speech 3 times. 3 couples walked out in the middle of that speech. And it's kind of scary. Yeah, that's it. That's the simple answer to that question.
Why was that? What was the thinking behind it, that speech going into darkness?
Yeah, good question. Do you want to come and sit down? You're very welcome. Oh, look, it's fine. Hello. Hello. Yeah, what was the thinking behind the speech in the dark? We did it in the light in that read-through, and it was almost impossible. That's not a good answer. That's not a good answer.
Unbearable to watch you doing it or to perform?
No, to watch it, to see it. People, you know, what's amazing when it goes into the dark is there are many questions. So Esther appears in the dark. Her first words are in the dark. I'm very excited about what the dark does to an audience, whether it unites an audience or whether it fragments an audience. I don't have an answer for that, but I know something happens to the audience when they are placed in the dark. We did have exit lights. They were on. They were fairly bright. We also put a little bit of light behind the seating unit, so it was never pitch black.
Didn't they? I thought they covered the exit signs for your last.
No.
Did they not?
No, they did not.
I
no.
hallucinated them.
You must have done that. You must have done that. It has a famously blackout, the upstairs theatre, and it was too much for us. So I take you to a place partly because the thing that I describe, that story, this is the speech, and I'm interested to hear what your responses are around that speech. The thing that I describe is a thing that happens in terms of the media in the dark. I never know. I don't know. I did no research for this play. I did no research looking at images on computers. I have a friend, Chris, who was an artist who did make a project with beheadings, and I had a huge argument with him about how he could possibly do that, and how I am politically activated against any of that, because I think those actions were committed so that we could look at them, and if we hadn't have looked at them, they might not have been committed. I did lots of discussions. I'm interested in that, the act of child abuse is, to look at an act of child abuse is the same legally as to commit an act of child abuse. I wanted there to be ambiguity. I don't know if you thought in the play, I don't know if you discussed this, whether I did that thing or whether I watched that thing being done. Usually in audiences we talked to afterwards, there would be like almost 50% saying I did it, 50% saying no, you watched it on a computer. Yeah, what did you think? Did I watch it or did I do it?
Well, I was just wondering, when people actually left, with the production that we saw, the first woman that left during the blackout, you started that speech, when she stood up, she went, I'm really sorry, and she's really apologetic, she went, I'm a mother, I just can't listen to this. And like hearing you talk about your ideas about not looking at the images of beheading, or it might not have happened, how much of a personal involvement did you then attach to that speech? Like, because people were leaving because of what you were saying, did that then make you feel like you should stop?
No, okay. It was a very difficult speech to perform. For the first 2 weeks, when the lights came up at the end of that speech, I couldn't look at anyone. And that was wrong. I would say that's bad acting, that is indulgent acting. And slowly I learned to be a little less indulgent, because I deliver that speech in the dark, the lights come up, and I need to just own that speech. I have to own what I have just said, and I have to be present, and you have to be present, and you have to own what's just happened. I'm intrigued as well that we spend more time describing someone having their head chopped off than we do that other speech. Nobody seems to have a problem with that, which I'm just bemused by. It's all fucking terrible. It's all terrible. I don't want there to be a grade in which is worse. It's interesting that she said, I'm a mother. It was beautiful that she felt she had to excuse her action on her maternal status. It's kind of like, and part of me also goes, well, I was a baby once. Do you know what I mean? In what way is there a moral? I understand it and I don't understand it. I understand it, but why does that give her a superiority? Not a superiority. That wasn't what she was doing, but she had to justify her action in some way. She didn't. She didn't have to give herself an excuse. She could just go. And it was beautiful that she said that. I remember that very clearly, that she said that. I'm sorry, I'm a mother. I don't know. This happens in the world. Now, you have a choice in the world. Is either to completely ignore that or to name it. Do you know what I mean? To name it. I have no idea what it is to rape a baby. I know that baby P's father raped a baby. I have no idea how that... So an act of imagination on my part, but I felt like I had to name that. I had to also place that in an absolute life situation. My wife is called Jules. I have kids who are staying with friends. Andy and Carl, who directed the show, come and stay at my house. Jules is a fantastic cook. We have dinner parties, blah, blah, blah. I'm a middle-class whore. I'm sorry. And I needed to say that. I need to call her Jules, because that's my wife's name. I needed it to be true, because I want you to know how fucking easy it might be, particularly if you've been the kind of director who's created that horrible piece of violence on stage, how easy it might be, because you've justified everything else in the name of art, how easy it might be just on your computer to follow some links, to have the choice to continue, to have the choice to stop, to choose to continue, to click, 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 and to find yourself, in effect, by law, committing that act, and almost ethically and morally committing that act. The idea of an active act, the action of seeing, seeing as a doing word. We've become so disconnected with art. We can look at anything, and it's got nothing to do with us. We can look at anything, it's got nothing to do with us. It has got something to do with you. If you look at it, it's got something to do with you. You don't forget that. I feel very passionate about that. So I wanted you to just have that image, those images, I wanted you to have them without my physical presence. I wanted you to have them in the dark. Those things happen in the dark. I was astonished every time when the lights came up because the audience would be in a completely different place. I don't mean they'd all got up and swapped round. I don't mean that. That would have been great. Hang on a minute. I mean, people were like this. Couples were holding. They were just, it was just extraordinary what that speech had. And people walked out, and people said, "For fuck's sake, stop this." A guy just behind me said, "Stop it." "Oh, for fuck's sake, stop this, stop this." And he was a big guy, and he could have just gone bump like that to me. And I'm excited that there is that. There was genuine danger. And listen, as an actor in theatre, unless there's something falls on your head from the flies, there's not much genuine danger. Do you know what I mean? There's not much. We talk about it. Wouldn't it be great, the theatre riots of the 19th century? Why can't we have those again? I'm not writing a piece to generate that, but I am very excited by people having real feelings. An assistant director of the Royal Court said, I sat there and just the whole show went, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. She couldn't talk to me. She was shaking at the end of the show. I hate this. And I said, did you hate it all the way through? She said, yes. I was like, great. Do you know what I mean? Great. And it's hard if you know that I'm making a character come alive who I think is vile. And his name is my name. And he has my wife and he has my life. But he's done this other thing. But I want to push those buttons. I want to put the knife in and just prise that apart and go, look what we're doing, those pieces that I have seen, and look at the dangers that are implicit in those pieces. If we do go down that road, if we do go around that road of just, it's okay. Life is fair game to the artist. The artist can do anything they like because it's fair game. If we are not responsible as artists and theatre makers, then we are in danger. And I don't say we deserve to die, but we're in danger.
Hi, just following on from that, I've been really in debate about that final speech of the play since I've seen it. Because I understand where you're coming from about it. There was part of it that said, why did you have to go there? Why did you have to make us think that and feel that and experience that? You're describing it as an act of humanity somehow, but is it not inhumane? We know this goes on. Why make people picture it?
Good, okay. It was the first thing I wrote, really, in the genesis of this piece, which was the worst thing I could imagine. And I was interested in the notion of, particularly the legal notion of, in that material, to see that material is to do that material. And I was interested in, I'm going to try and make it humane again, I'm probably not going to answer your question very well. So we discussed at length about that. Nothing is shown. No action is committed. No action is committed. I'm interested that in various plays, babies are eaten, people are blinded, people have terrible things committed, and it seems like those things are more bearable than in the dark me telling you to see something. I'm interested in that. I don't understand it. I can't be clear about it. I think it's very exciting on one level. I'm also understanding that a lot of people were very upset by that. We're very upset by that, and it's not my intention to necessarily go out and upset people. I felt very strongly that I need, like I said, to name the thing that would be talked about, because from Chris Langham, from all those cases, I have no idea what's happening there. There is an obfuscation around that. There is an evilness. These people are evil. Okay, people who do that are evil scum, and they should be locked away forever. I have a lot of problems with notions of evil. I have a lot of problems with lack of forgiveness or understanding. I needed, I think, to try and generate the thing itself so that it could be seen where it comes from. Do you know what I mean? And if I just done a euphemism, or if I just ellipsed my way around it, yeah, you would have got it, perhaps. You would have just... but I couldn't go round it. I had to go through it. I felt very strongly I had to go through it. I'm sorry I have to take you through it. There have been moments of gross violence and descriptions of gross violence that have led up to that moment. And always we've said, are you okay? I know you don't know it's going to come. You get a sense it might be coming before it's gone completely dark. You do have a choice to go. A lot of people I met just put their fingers in their ears. I want you to, I want you to be in that for a bit and respond however you want to respond. If you are furious, then I'm sorry. If you are upset, then I'm sorry. But I think you cannot dance around it. It felt really important for me.
Lots of people want to come in on this. Lizzie, then Susie, then you, and then there's another one up the back. So.
Just in relation to that, I actually had a really similar thought, like directly afterwards, and I reacted extremely badly. So that speech actually got really guilty because I was sat right in front of you and I was really hoping I wasn't really distracting you.
You weren't, no.
And afterwards I said I hated it. I hated the entire thing. I didn't feel like it was necessary. But then I thought about it more and I thought, but because these things do happen, that is why it was necessary. And the fact that I had such a strong reaction to it, kind of, in the end, just with the benefit of hindsight, made me appreciate it more, and I had more respect for you being able to do that. Because, like you say, if you danced around it, if you just kind of bypass the subject and hints at it, then it would...
We need to know where it comes from. Do you know what I mean? And it is coming from this culture, this lax, haphazard culture, where media images, saturation of images, where just anything is available, from people having their heads chopped off to anything is available for us to look at. And we can go, it's fine, it's got nothing to do with me, I'm just looking at it. And yeah, you do look at it, I'm afraid.
Susie.
Yeah, it's not really about that final speech, but I was just wondering, you talk a lot in your work about kind of audience response, and that's something I look in the author that it's very heavily kind of reliant on audience response. And I was wondering if, obviously the author works really well in the space upstairs, but I was wondering if you ever saw yourself maybe writing a play in the theatre downstairs, or would you think that the way that the stage is framed and the way that it's set out, do you think that would be a disadvantage to your work? Do you think that it means the audience would be distanced from it?
Well, England, of course, it plays in art galleries. I'm not consciously seeking out non-theatre spaces. I was commissioned to write a play for the Royal Court upstairs. I immediately felt of that, and I spent some time in there. I was aware of the violence of the past of that building, and what's happened in that building. And you can go, but it was plays, Tim, it was plays. And I would go, these are representation acts of violence. They're what we see. Do you know what I mean? That beheading is still, for us, a representational act of violence, because we're not actually there having our head chopped off. Do you know what I mean? So, and also I was excited about the Royal Court being the site, this outside stage door, where Adrian gets the shit kicked out of him, and as he does so, the audience stand back. So where are we in relation to real violence as well, to those real acts? I don't know what I will write next. I've got a few ideas, but the thing itself determines where it is. I find it very hard to write a play for necessarily a specific thing. So,
okay, let's take both of these comments. But there's one here, and then there are a couple over here. But yes,
I'm just interested in how, we can see in the audience response how far it polarised opinion about whether it's necessary to do it or whatever. But if you take the idea of the you've said that in legal implications in this instance, seeing is doing. What's your opinion then that the audience, however incensed we might have claimed to be afterwards, had a certain complicity in it because we stayed and listened?
Well, look, we get the theatre we make, really, as audiences. We are responsible for what we look at. It's a long, circuitous journey, but theatre reflects how we are as human beings, how we are as social beings. It reflects that. And it starts within the community, it starts within the society, it starts within the social network, and then theatre comes out of that. So I'm not thinking for a second that the work that I make is separate in any way. We are responsible for what we see. I do think that we are responsible for the novels that we read, because novelists write novels for us as readers. So we are giving agency to the writer to write a novel that in effect we want to read. So there is something happening in that play about wanting to be in a community of ourselves. You know, it's difficult, it's not easy, but there is certainly a sense of, from contemporary culture and the way we are, to be present with ourselves, to be witnessing ourselves witnessing. You know, look at TV, look at reality TV, look at all that kind of stuff. It's happening. There's a presence of that getting stronger and stronger. And the play is a suggestion of that, really. I think explores that area.
Because we're kind of running out of time, could I suggest we take these 3 comments and then you respond to all of those, and then we'll probably have to end. So, yes.
Sorry, I'm meandering away from the author now, but I was wondering, you know how you were saying about when you saw the oak tree, the painting,
the piece of art.
Was it when you saw that you kind of thought, it would be very cool to kind of create a piece of theatre, making people use their imaginations, or was it something that you kind of liked and did before, and that just kind of emphasised it, or kind of made it?
A very simple answer to that, Dan. No, I'd written my arm before I saw that piece of work, and when I saw that piece of work, I thought, that's the play. That is exactly the area I'm working in. So it was an endorsement of that, really.
Yeah, it's great, Chris.
To what extent can the writer imagine the audience? I think you made that comment earlier, and I'm thinking, well, surely there are sort of cultural and other boundaries in that imagination process.
Yeah, I think it's a dangerous thing to imagine an audience. I think it is a dangerous thing. I think to involve an audience is a very important thing, and to meet an audience is a very important thing, and to allow an audience to be present is a very important thing. Then they don't have to do so much imagining. Do you know what I mean? They don't have to put themselves in a position in relation to the work. They are just in a relation to the work, and then they are allowed to have those extreme responses. And that's good. That's a good thing for me to know that people might hate it and people might love it. I'm very unhappy if a piece of work just has uniformly good reviews, or truthfully, I would always.
So far.
What?
No danger of that.
Well, no, I've had some bad reviews, and there are bad reviews on my website. And I had a big discussion at the Soho Theatre with an oak tree. John Peter at the Sunday Times hated an oak tree.
1 star.
Yeah, 1 star. Fantastic. And the big discussion was, can we please blow this review up and put it outside? Please, because that's poorly imagining an audience, that they will not have the wisdom and maturity to understand that the theatre response is a subjective one, and you are entitled to however you want to respond. You're bringing lots of conditions with you, from family, from childhood, from what you've seen, what you've experienced, what your work is, what your thoughts are. Particularly in this play, a friend of mine from Brighton who was abused as a child by her father, doesn't see her parents at all, even though they live in the same town. And she came to see the show, and in fact, when I said, we've all done that, haven't we? Images of flesh. I'm not proud, but we've all done it, haven't we? At the end of a day, a couple of clicks before bed, she just went, no, we haven't. And it was phenomenal, but I knew it was her. I recognised her voice. She was just really, really strong. So when I say, that's poorly imagined, but also it's a conscious act of poorly imagining, because I know that's not true. And Tim Crouch says, you won't forgive me, will you? I know you, look at you, you won't forgive me. That's a piece of poor imagining, because actually I hope in you, Tim Crouch, the writer of the author, I hope there will be an understanding. I hope there will be. Do you know what I mean? I want to go to that extreme and then go, so where are you in relation to this? Should I have killed myself? Should I go and stick a knife in my throat and behead myself in a flotation tank? Or, should you be going, no, wait, don't do that. Let's just talk about this. Let's talk about this. Adrian was most upset because I was going to kill myself. There's a big moral, I think it's a moral question that's placed in the middle of the play.
And this is going to have to be the last one.
I'm interested in what you said about the variety in audience response to the end speech. I went to see the author twice,
And what I really found was that it really made a difference about where you sat in the audience. So the first time I went to see it, I was sitting directly behind you.
Yeah.
And then the second time, I was sitting almost directly behind Adrian.
Right.
And I was watching the audience quite a lot when the lights came back up, and also at the end of the play. And it was really interesting to actually see the way the audience reacted depending on where they were sitting. The audience that sat very close to you had very extreme reactions.
Yes.
And I was just interested really to see if you had anything to say about that.
Any wisdom on that one? No, it's interesting. There is no ideal place to see this show from. Do you know what I mean? I'm excited about that. It says in the foreword, that the sometimes thwarted desire to see members of the company is part of that wanting to see dynamic that is explored in the play, and almost criticised in the play. Rather like your experience of England, I want to look at the work and listen to the words. My hope, in one way, is that you could just look at each other and listen to the words. You don't have to. You're not going to get necessarily big clues by looking at the four actors. You'll get more clues, perhaps, by looking at the audience.
Sorry, can I just... But do you think also just the proximity makes a difference? I mean, sitting right by you, that's not safe. When you're a safe distance away, that makes a difference, There's a guy who's saying the speech and it's horrible, but he's a safe distance away. He's sitting. There's this guy who's saying something that's horrible. He's right in front of me. That's going to make a difference, even when you're in pitch black.
We're all in this together. I don't know. We're all in this together. It does feel. I know these people are sitting on either side. Usually they're like kids at the end of that speech. But I would hope that all of you are a bit like that. It's just that there's a clearer gulf between, because I'm there having spoken those words. Don't know.
And that's a great note.
I don't know.
Can I just ask you to join me in thanking...